Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode. And yes, today it's going to be a long one. I do apologize. It's about 31 minutes. There is no long, short version of this. This is honestly just something you kind of have to learn. And I think maybe this episode is a little bit about patience as well. Today we're going to go over in detail island detecting, how to best handle the islands, how to support different areas. And for this, we're using a model from Crippled God Foundry, and this is one of their older ones. This is the Cursed one, and this is a really nice sculpt. Pre-support work on this one, basic pieces, well done, but it's not finished, at least not for me, when I open up the LYS file in Lychee. So for that case, I always do a little tweaking to the support file. I'll usually go in and, obviously you have to do the island detection yourself because that's not going to be done. But I'll add a couple extra supports. I'll maybe move one or two around, and you'll see that. We're going to go through that. And this also determines on some people why pre-support files will fail, because you don't necessarily have all the starting points exactly where they need to be, depending on the slicer you're using. And, that affects a lot. Now, obviously, the first thing we want to do is make sure we have good contact points on the base. And we want to make sure that the supporting there is good at the bottom. There's a little fork there, so that will work just fine. There are some errors in the base itself and the geometry that Lychee is detecting, but honestly, nothing that seems like it's going to affect the print. So I'm not really concerned with that. I'm going to, obviously as you go up, just take a look at the way that the piece builds. The most important part about this progress and going layer by layer or slice by slice is by looking at how the piece builds. And so you can kind of see where the islands will appear. And the annoying part is on this base, the islands are going to be so small that they're essentially going to be what we just refer to as dots. The little mini supports are going to be so small they're just going to be dots. But fortunately, because this is a textured base, I don't think it's going to matter too much because that's going to look textured. You can easily just sand that down a little bit and I think it'll look just fine. Alright, with those little dots handled, pretty much all I'm going to do is add a couple additional supports underneath the base, and they're just going to be light. And this is really just to give it a little extra stability while it's building up. Sometimes I know, the pre-supporting work is done to a degree where it's just enough to make the piece support with minimal amount of damage. But it's a base, so I don't really care about the underside too much. And I do care that it survives. That's the most important thing to me. And I'll also adjust the bracings. So that should help. I have no doubt that that will succeed. And moving on to the other guy. The cursed one. And of course, starting with the same process. Checking contact points, making sure that things start in the right place, making sure that support tips start more in the center than they will on the offset or the off-center. You want to try and make sure that your supports are balanced. This is all about balance. You're working against gravity. You're pulling up and down against a sheet of plastic, essentially, with a metal plate. And so you want to be able to win this tug of war in such a way that you're not doing damage, you're not warping, you're not stretching. That's a very hard dance to do. And so this part of the process is kind of intricate, and it will take you some time. But I promise that if you take the time to learn this part of it, and then if you look at the models like this, you'll truly start to understand what it is that will separate like a really good print that comes out perfectly to that came out good or okay. Now we'll keep checking the cursed one layer by layer, and sure, again, like going slice by slice is going to take you some time, but I honestly would rather do this every day than clean up failed prints. What do you think? You agreeing with me there? I thought so. As we move up again, we'll see there's going to be different points on the model that really do need attention. And the software is not going to fully catch them because in a lot of these cases, the software is not going to fully see it as an issue. It's going to go, well, there's a support there. It's, it's off to the left, barely grabbing onto it, but it's there. It's there. And so it's kind of up to you to go, well, it's not really in the greatest place. Now, as you move up, you're going to see spots like this. This little tiny area here is definitely going to fail. Now, the disappointing aspect there is that the software has totally just ignored that. It's like, that's fine. It's because it's part of the build as it moves up. But in my opinion, that is still an island. I mean, it's not officially an island because it's not disconnected, but it is so flimsy at that stage that it is more likely it is going to stick to the FEP and become an artifact in your vat, which is going to cause you problems. So just keep that in mind. This is all about building a better support structure. And island detection and making sure that your island setup and supporting is good is key in ensuring that your print survives. Now, of course, you also have to make sure that you maintain quality. And so that is really the job of the type of supporting you're using, whether that is tip diameter or bar size or both. And again, it really depends on what you're printing and how fragile and thin the parts are. And we'll get to some more of that in a bit here, as you'll see. Now here's an item on this build that presents an interesting problem, and let's go focus in on this. I can show you what I mean. Now, this is a pre-support build, so again, we should assume that it's just going to build the way it is, and honestly, it might, but from the day that I owned this STL file, I did not print it the way that these guys gave it to me. I always added some little microfine hair supports on the inside here to ensure its survival. It is such a small piece. It's thinner than a millimeter. maybe like half a millimeter thick and, 3/4 of a millimeter on its widest point. Even these little tiny tips could potentially cause damage during removal, and so I still will need to be very careful, make sure nothing fuses. But if I were to print this on its own, I really feel like it would have some issues. I feel like you'd lose some of it, or some other multiple problems might occur. And you can put a little cross frame in there. You don't have to do it that way. That's even a little excessive, because again, you're going to have to go in there with a little X-Acto knife and carefully cut these little hairs out. So maybe you only put one. And honestly, that might be a little overkill. Keeping them on the outside is usually going to be enough, because you're going to support the structure and pull it away from the FEP as you do each pull or each peel. And so I think that's going to help it survive during, the couple peels that it's going to need to print. And I say couple, but it's more than a couple. But you essentially get the idea. This little piece could be an issue if it's not held up. Now in the pre-support file, again, they just kind of have it going from one part of the structure to the other, and for the most part, sure, seems like that would work. And it might actually work. On most of my large deck printers, that will not work. Even on the small ones. Again, I don't even want to chance it, just because it's just going to create tiny little artifacts in the vat if it does fail, and then I wind up having to clean that up later. So I just do a little extra support work. And again, this is all part of the game of going up and down, going slice by slice, and kind of analyzing the piece, as you kind of look at each 2D slice and go, okay, what's happening next? What's happening this cross section? What's happening in this cross section? It's important to really get kind of intimate with what is going on with each layer, and that's what we're doing. Now again, the only other advice I can give you guys is that just go slow. Make sure you check each slice, check for islands using the software as well. Of course, please use the software. The Slicer software, Lychee Slicer, has a great island detection system. It works very well. Lately, I feel like I do have to do a bit more of it by eye than I used to, and I don't know if that's just because it's being weird because of the most recent update or whatever the case is. But it's a bit more handwork. I feel like I have to kind of dig in a little bit more, which is fine. Like I said before, it's important to become intimate with what you're working on. You want to really understand different parts of it, because when you pull it off your build plate, you really want to be able to go, okay, every part of this printed good. I can make out all that detail. I remember what I was looking at. There's the piece of the armor here. There's where the hammer came up. This is what the tip of the hammer was supposed to look like. This is what the base of the hammer and the hand and the necklace and everything was supposed to look like. And so I think that's important. You spend a lot of time working on the model in your slicing software. You really become intimate with what it looks like and what it's supposed to look like. Because this is really the only other representation you're going to get other than what you're printing. So again, spend a little time with it. If you're doing and you're learning hand supporting, I think it's important. If you're not and you're simply trusting pre-support files, great. You know what? If you want to do that, that is your choice. Not every pre-support file is created equal. I've had a lot of trouble with some in the past, so you use them at your own risk, folks. That's all I say. Anyway, good luck printing, folks. As always, if you've enjoyed this demo tutorial, please leave a like, comment, hit that subscribe button, and please don't forget to ring the bell if you want notifications on content like this. This is what we do. Tips, tricks, techniques, 3D printing stuff. Eventually we're going to have more painting techniques coming. I promise we're working on it. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. So long, folks. See you all real soon.